I'm a good driver. Dad lets me drive in the driveway. Huh? You know that one?
I do not.
Rain Man?
Oh, I definitely do not know.
You haven't seen Rain Man?
I know.
Ian!
I mean, we could just put up like...
I know. Have you watched any?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, man. You got to keep up with this a little or it's going to be insurmountable.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Can't keep adding to the list and never address the list.
Hey, if you could see, I've started to make some progress on getting things set up so that, like... Because I figure if I'm going to watch some of these and nobody else in the family cares to watch them anyways, we'll set up for...
Stream it. Or a live watch.
Yeah, I'll record myself watching it to see if there's anything worth it, or at least
Are you aware of the movie?
Yeah, of course I am.
You know who's in it?
Yes, but I'm not going to remember her name right now.
So it won the Best Picture in 1988. Stars Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Yes.
And Dustin Hoffman won Best Actor. Tom Cruise was nominated for Supporting Actor. Could have won. Not my favorite of his performances overall, but he's perfect for the role. And it's the story of two brothers. The older one, Dustin Hoffman, is mentally challenged, and then his younger brother is going to kind of use that to his advantage. And along this road trip movie, he discovers more about himself and who he is and what matters in life, and it's a great flick.
You sold it well. That is, I like it. I've been familiar with the movie for a long time. Of course, how would you not be? It's just
Rain Man.
Nothing I watched with my family growing up, and then once I got to the age of watching movies for myself, it was a lot of, actions and comedies, and not necessarily like finding yourself on a road trip journey movie type of thing that I was looking for.
Sure.
Definitely something more on my radar now as I continue to journey on the path of figuring out who I am and who God wants me to be and what that looks like.
Great performances, some super heartfelt moments, some very funny moments, some tear-jerking moments.
So with that, obviously it won awards.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal movie, and I know that. I don't have to see it to know these things, and have known that. But it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Won awards, and has a great message to it. But is that a requirement for a movie to be a good movie, to be an entertaining movie?
I mean, I would say, for me, kind of comes back to your definition of good.
Elaborate.
Are we quantifying that good is this movie benefits people's lives, enriches it, and if so, how? Does it enrich it by just making you laugh? In which case, there's plenty of movies that be considered good that other people hate.
Yes. Probably most of the movies I like.
Yeah. Doesn't make them bad. But I think there's a difference between the entertainment value of a movie and the ability for that movie to leave a mark, to change you, to inspire you to grow, develop, try something new, look inward at yourself and maybe make a change of something. So I don't think it's a requirement, but I think there's the medium of film. One of the reasons I got into it and love it so much is, unlike any other pieces of art for me, have the ability, if done correctly, to do these things. To inspire change, to make you want to be better, to make you relive something from your past that you want to revisit, or maybe don't, but it's healthy in the long run to do so. That there's a little bit of onus on writers and directors that have that power to wield it well and intentionally and with discretion, I would say. And the movies that do that well, that find that balance, are the ones that I think stand the test of time, are rewatchable, and people look back on them as a great movie. One of the best I've seen. Like, you know, the superlatives that we hear about them come from that. Did it change me in some way? Did it make me think? Did it make me learn something, either about myself or the world around me or someone else? So I feel like it's not a requirement for a movie to be good, but I think there's a little bit of a requirement if you want the movie to be more than a fun escapism for a couple hours, which is fine to have movies be that. But if you feel like this story has the legs to be more, then you have more of a responsibility and a requirement to shepherd it to do that. And I think there's oftentimes, especially with like faith-based films, that seems to get lost. That part of the ability of a film to change the way you think, make you think, or even just cause you to feel and emote and enjoy the experience overall, comes from all of these pieces working together of cinematography and writing and acting and sound design and set design and plotting and editing, and like when all of them are working together, the things that can be accomplished through film are amazing.
Oh, agreed.
And the things that people think are happening when they're just like, well, if we talk about Jesus in our film, clearly that will make people want to accept Jesus. No! And it feels like some of the... It's hard to say worst movies, because there are some terrible, terrible movies. But some of the middle-of-the-road to bad movies that could have been really good were weighed down by their own self-centeredness and hubris of, I need to get my message across. Otherwise, the money these people spent to make this movie will go away. Which is the backwards way of thinking of it, is how do I tell a really, really good story with these characters and walk through that, and then the quality of that will speak for itself. So,
Yes.
That was a long-winded answer, I think. But
I like it. Well, and it's good. I think the thing that I really, because like you're definitely more the film buff, and I mean studied it, practiced it, researched it way beyond me. I just enjoy it as a whole and as an art form, and any art form I enjoy. But I think you hit on the big key of what makes it lasting, what makes it impactful, what makes the difference is it entertaining? Like that, at the end of it all, like dumbing down everything you said, is it entertaining? Is it something that sticks? Because I mean, you think about even watching like teaching programs in school and stuff where they like, you watch a 15-minute film on, you know, how your body works. What do you remember from that? Enough to pass the test and then nothing after that.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring. Now, the things that they teach us in movies with entertainment that you can learn, not even realizing you're learning these things, and these things that can impact you and change the direction that you live your life, is huge. Mm-hmm. And it's that, I mean, honestly, if they wanted to make school more, where people would retain more and actually learn more, if they made stuff like that more entertaining, more engaging,
I mean,
it would change the whole
clearest
game.
example of that for me would be Hamilton, because that musical is so densely packed with history. 90% of it true. Some of it made up for narrative arc and character development costs. But it's done so astutely and musically that I now know about the Continental Congress, and I know how many of the what is it? He wrote the Hamilton, John and Jay, the Federalist Papers. There it is.
Okay.
He wrote the I know.
Sorry, I was not helping you at all.
Hamilton wrote 51 of the Federalist Papers, and I'll never forget that because it's in the musical. And I'll never forget that Aaron Burr became a senator to replace his father-in-law. And I'll never forget that his son had a duel, and then he had a duel, and all of the inner workings, because it was done in such an entertaining way.
Yep.
You learn without realizing you're learning, and that's the best kind of learning. And there's some fantastic history videos on YouTube. They're just made by a guy that likes the history. Like there's one called The History of Japan, and it's like 14 minutes long, maybe 16 minutes long. But because the history of Japan is so dense, he's literally jumping like by hundreds of years.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the capital. And then these guys came in and beat them. So it moved over here. And then these guys came and beat this. And then this guy wanted to be emperor. So they moved down here. Now this became Tokyo. And I learned more in that video and have retained more from that video than I ever learned in any world history class.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there is so much fact to what you say and so much to the entertainment value. And I think it's just true that the movies that stand the test of the time have something valuable in the movie and they're entertaining. Like that's the only way that they stand, and you will go back to them or you'll think of it. I mean, think of, oh gosh, It's a Wonderful Life. Like, still today, kids are watching that, falling in love with it, and then showing it to their kids and going on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's got a great message underlying the whole thing, and it's a journey and a ride along the way,
mm-hmm.
and entertaining, and you're taking on an emotional roller coaster. And
yeah, I mean, humans are so geared towards stories, and always have been. I mean, before we could write, there was oral traditions and histories, and as soon as we could write, people have been writing and writing and writing, and then they did plays, and then they've done musicals, and now they're doing movies and TV shows, and the opportunity to tell a story is unending, and that's what is sometimes disappointing by the rehash of let's do a sequel or let's do live action or both. Now with like the live action Mufasa, it could be great. I might watch it once it's on Disney Plus or something. I'm not gonna go spend money to see it in theaters. But a little bit is like,
we couldn't go with something new. But that's also where the alternative media is. We're seeing the people coming up on a YouTube or a Rumble or even on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram that are creating their own series. I mean, you can't call it TV because it's not TV, but their own entertainment series, their own entertainment shows, and creating their own things that some of them have actually made their way into mainstream Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, because unfortunately, like it or not, Hollywood's a business, so they're just going to try to look for the thing that they know is going to work and not have the big flop misses.
yeah.
But the reality is that they just spent some time. And actually, Angel Studios, are you familiar with how like their process works? So I may not say it exactly correct as it is. You can research it online, anybody, to just fact check. But there's something like 500,000 or something people that are part of the Angel, I forget what they call them, but basically
The angel investors?
kind of, but not. So when they have a movie or a script or something that somebody wants to produce, it gets presented to Angel Studios, and then all these people have the chance to read it. They might have a short, whatever, what is it called when they do the short, like, pilot type thing for a movie, but it's not a pilot, it's kind of, I forget what, like a screening kind of thing. Whatever they have that they want to represent what it is, and people will get to see that and give their review and thoughts on it if they think it'll be good or not. Before Angel ever picks it up, ever invests money, ever puts it out there. Then you look at all the movies they put out, and they crush, they crush, they crush, they crush. Because they're doing all the work on the front side to figure out what resonates with people, what do people like, not just a couple people sitting in an office, not somebody with, this is my vision, this is what I'm going to do. It's actually a whole group of people that put their input in there of, oh, I'd love to watch that, or I mean, if it was on Saturday and I had nothing else to watch, I'd watch it, but that kind of thing. And that's where the process that they go through for these movies to get to the point where they're going to actually put them together. I was just fascinated by that, and I was like, that feels more what the world needs today. I mean, with the amount of entertainment things that are out there, the options that are there, you just can't pigeonhole or just think. I mean, you just look at how many things have come out in the past decade that were just, whether it's just the advertising or whatnot built up to be like the next big blockbuster hit, the next, and by a week and a half in, it's lost like all its money and nobody's going to see it. And
you heard of that?
Yeah.
They spent like 170 million and it's made like 34.
Well, and I played Borderlands. I love the game. I didn't go see it.
I mean, nothing in the trailers really made me want to go. I've never played, so it didn't draw me in. I had no idea what was going on. Didn't really feel connected to anything that was shown in the trailer.
Yeah, no. There's far too many misses. And I think too much now you just have people looking at chasing a dollar versus chasing the experience.
Yes.
If you...
But, and again, it feels so illogical to me, and I feel a similar way to a lot of what happens in business from time to time, including my own company, of like, in the long run, if you do the right thing the right way, usually, almost always, you'll see the financial return of that. But they spend so much time trying to assure that on the back end by doing these things on the front end that, again, if we make Cars 4, people will come because it's Cars. Versus what Pixar, and I'm still astounded by what they're able to do back in 1997 or whatever, that Toy Story was a hit. And they had a meeting, and they sat down. In one meeting, they came up with the idea for, like, Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles, and WALL-E, and Brave. And they had all these incredibly original ideas that they wanted to put on screen, and they did, and it made them billionaires.
But then...
And then they're like, nope, let's just rehash.
But there's something else, too, that I find... Like, I didn't know that till you shared that right there. That's, again, your knowledge around that. But let's unpack that for a minute. And okay, so way back then, they went into the room and they said, here's these films. They didn't just all come out right away, though.
Right.
It took time for them to come out.
Right.
So they worked on them, they developed them, they worked on that story and created that story to bring value, bring entertainment, bring a message to life. Not just, okay, here's the idea, okay, let's put it out. Like, you think about some of those movies that you named off, I'd be interested. I mean, some of them probably had to be double-digit years before it ever hit the screen.
Yeah, probably. I mean, an animated film, especially of that quality, even when you're like actively working on it, it's probably at least close to 2 years from original script
Yeah.
to release.
But you're going 2 years.
And they would only work on one movie at a time. So.
Yep. But you think about, like, they're able to, because if you know, like, I think about, okay, yeah, you're going to be working on the one movie. But you don't think writers were working on one movie and something from one to another would be like, oh, I'm just going to put that in the book over here for later. I think that would be, like, it's the time and process that, like, yeah, you're going to be focused in on the one, give it its time, but it's just that the vision be like, okay, what's the future? What are these things? Investing the time and the process. And when you have something like that, you have the ability to, as you're thinking, and I watch this with my own daughter, and like her vision of like art and creation, like her mind runs wild with things. But she has such trouble because she doesn't want to like leave anything in the chopping room floor. When you have a vision and a path and so many things that you're creating on, like when you have something that you really love a story arc or a narrative of, but it doesn't fit the story you're telling now, okay, well, I can set that aside because I'll know when it fits the story right. You know, and you just document that along the way, and you, okay, hey, let me find that notebook, let me find that note of this is gonna fit here, you know, and not just forcing things in or quick rushing it out and being like, that'll be good enough.
Yeah.
It takes time.
That's why I was so pleasantly surprised with Avatar: Way of Water, because I was blown away by the first one, mostly visually. I thought the story was good enough, but the acting was superb. The motion capture was stunning, and then the entire world building was incredibly cool. But then we had to wait a decade? No.
I think so.
Was it 2019? No, that was only a couple of years ago. I think it was 2022. I think we had a 12-year gap between the first one and the second one.
Yeah, it was.
And it felt very much like, at the time, who's going to go see an Avatar movie? It's been so long. Anybody that really enjoyed the first experience probably isn't going to come back. And then it made another $1 billion and was, I think, a better film, a better story than the first one. And it makes me trust James Cameron more.
Yeah.
And excited for 3, 4, and 5, supposedly, of the Avatar sequels.
Well, if they take 12 years in between each one of those, it might.
Well, we'll see about that. Again, when he first announced his, I have 4 more to come, it was going to be like 2016, 2020, 2023, and 2025, and it was going to be done. And then it kept pushing back and pushing back and pushing back, and now I think the third one is slated for like 2028, and then 2034 and 2038.
That is a tough
And
balance.
James Cameron's getting older.
That is definitely tough because you want, clearly, with the products that are being turned out, putting that time in makes it an incredible product. But also, how long is that gap? When does... Because, yeah, there's a certain point you can string it all together, but at a certain point, like, you can get stretched thin and something else can circumvent its chain of consciousness, something like that. Wow, I just butchered
Consciousness.
that. Yes. English, I mean, we get along great.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm not on camera talking or anything. Oh, hey, hi guys. So with that, I just think, like, he's clearly delivering on the value and the experience with that. So hopefully, as it comes together better. I think that's one of those beautiful things when you think of like the Harry Potter series. Like, they had the books. They knew the story. So they knew going in, like, okay, here's start, here's finish, here's what we're telling, how are we doing it? And I think sometimes, from my perspective, we get movies that people put out and they put it out more as a one hit, here's my idea thing, and then it blows up and they're like, hey, okay, I could expand on this world. And it's not like it's forced to make it expand. It's just they weren't thinking that way to begin with. So when it hits and it's like, oh, well, this film that just went out that I spent the last 19 years of my life thinking about and writing in amongst the other things I was doing now hit. And I have to try to figure out how to write the next one and get it done in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Is a different thing. When I think, to me, I think if you're a writer and you're building it out, again, I'll talk about my own daughter. She, like, when she's like building out her ideas of like any kind of world or entertainment, it's like she's thinking about like start to like finish of like multiple run episode thing, like layers of it way far out there, even though that wouldn't necessarily be the first, like you wouldn't tell it all in one thing. Like, so having your ability to, okay, here's this world, here's the creation, okay, here's what I'm doing now, what does it look like to do beyond that? Where would I want that character to go? What story would I want it to tell?
Mm-hmm.
And have that mapped out. Even if you don't have everything written for the next ones, if you have some key pieces already laid out there for that vision, then if it hits, you're already like, okay, I have the roadmap of where I want to go. Versus I think some of those, they just hit, and that's why we have such a gap too, because they're like, oh,
yeah,
we thought this was a throwaway film on the floor, but we put it out there, and now we need to make another one because we like money.
Right.
Or they want to entertain us too. I mean, that's fair. The artists want to entertain us. The movie execs want their money.
Right.
Which everybody needs each other.
There's the balance of the director's ability and responsibility to make the best piece of art that they can, and I think that's borne out by Denis Villeneuve's Dune.
I'm so torn because I haven't seen any of those
Dune
yet.
Part
And everybody tells me they're so good, but there's more coming.
Yeah.
And I don't like having to wait in suspense. So if I haven't watched anything yet, I wait till I know we're to the final one, and then I'll watch them all.
Sure.
And then I'll go experience the last one in theater with everybody. Like, I'll tell you, that's honestly been one of my contemplations. I'm like, do I just... Because, like, with Marvel, I didn't get into Marvel early on. Mm-hmm. Like, I had seen Iron Man, and I had seen the old original Incredible Hulks, and some of Spider-Man and stuff, but, like, the MCU kind of kicked off, and I think I saw Iron Man 2, and that was it, and then they had, like, Thor and Guardians and Captain America, and I was like, I wasn't really, like, young family kids. I wasn't going to a lot of movies anyways, and they weren't, like, hitting with me, and I don't know. I'm trying to think. I know Katie would remember like what movie we went and saw one of them in theater.
Ragnarok, Guardians. Ragnarok pulled me back in. I had kind of gotten a little washed out of that after Thor was okay. Thor 2 was Iron Man 2 and 3 were pretty okay. And I was like, this is a lot of superhero. And then Ragnarok came and just brought the fun, and then Guardians, or vice versa. I don't remember which one came first, but those two were like, all right, I'm back in.
Yeah. It might have, I'm trying to think if it was like Black Panther, Ant-Man. I'm trying to think of how far it was into it. But it was wonderful for us because went and watched one of them, like, oh, this is really good. Okay, well, now we have to go back to the start. We got to string this whole thing together and figure out. So then start watching them and getting caught up, and then like not having year gaps and stuff. And kind of by the time we started watching it all, there's already multiple years of movies, and they started putting out like to a year. So there wasn't a ton of suspense. You're like, okay, well, we'll see this one in March, and then we got this one coming out Christmas time.
Right.
Like, we're good. Like,
But I remember when they announced Ant-Man and Wasp in between Infinity War and Endgame. I was like, what a letdown that's going to be. And then it obviously became crucial to the plot of Endgame,
yep,
which is why they did it.
exactly.
And I get it now. But it was, for
Seen very off.
those two tentpole movies, and then you have the sequel to
Itty
Ant-Man.
bitty what?
Plugged right in the middle there.
I suppose for you, because like for me, the Ant-Man is one of my favorite, like, because just the comedic side of it and just like the human side of it to me is just so more raw and real. It's just not your stereotypical hero, and so I've always enjoyed those. So it wasn't like being in between. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't really think about like huge film, really huge film, itty bitty ant movie.
Itty bitty living space.
Where then for you, you're like, you understand like arcs and movies and stories, and you're like,
It's a weird one to put there.
why? Why is that there? Then you watch it.
Now you know.
They knew what they were doing.
So here's my take for Dune for you. Obviously, you could wait. And if that's the case, I would say make sure you watch them on the biggest screen with the best sound system you can before seeing the third one. I'm sure someone will have AMC or Marcus or whatever will have a come watch part one on Tuesday and part two on Wednesday, and then an evening showing of part three on Thursday for the opening or whatever. And that is how those movies need to be seen. I would say there's some movies that are cool to watch on the biggest screen possible. IMAX, true IMAX if you can. We don't have one here in Minnesota, unfortunately. The closest one is in Iowa.
So we're road tripping, is that what you mean?
But the scale at which Dennis, and his cinematographer made that film cannot really be grasped or experienced or felt on even a 60-inch TV in your living room 10 feet away. It's designed and best experienced in a theater, whether it's with a full theater or just you. I was blown away. I didn't read the books. I never saw the movie from the 80s. I knew nothing going into it, and I have to be a little bit honest. I never played Doom either, and I didn't see that movie. And I kind of put Dune and Doom. I kind of like
Gotcha.
never quite knew the difference. Obviously, I do now.
Cool.
And what
I'm not familiar with Dune, but I definitely know Doom.
a lot of what we talked about in terms of like what a movie can be. I think oftentimes sci-fi gets a bad rap outside of like Lord of the Rings, of like it's never as good a quality. And then he came out with Dune, and for me it gave me the respite of there are still true artists that love sci-fi and know how to create a world and a vision, bring everybody together that needs to make that happen, and do it exquisitely. And for me, that one is it's an experience, and two, it gives me hope for what will be coming from him. Obviously, it might not be as good as 1 and 2. I would expect that it will be, because it's his vision and he's taking the time to do it right.
Yeah.
But having seen 1 and 2, you have the delayed gratification of I want it now, but also I cannot tell you how excited I am for when it comes, because I know what he's already created, and I can't wait to see if this is the end, or if he's leading for a 4th film or a 5th or whatever. I am all in on it whenever it comes, because those movies were so good. So that would be my pitch to watch them now. Again, as big a screen as possible. You might see it playing in the second run somewhere or something. But if not, then I would say totally hold off and find them in the biggest theater you can when they're re-released.
We'll see what happens. Add it to that list.
Again, it's just the intentionality behind everything is so top-notch. It reminds me of Lord of the Rings because they brought the best actors and the best writers with the best director who truly cared about the story and Tolkien and the world and wanted it to be right. And then they brought in the best visual effects artists and the best miniature artists and the best storyboarders and the best editors, and it all came together to create the trilogy. And it feels like this is the first time since then I've seen something of this high art caliber that is as entertaining as it is. Oftentimes you get the more fun entertaining without the high level quality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the Marvel arc, some great films, some really great films, and some pretty good films. But I don't know if anybody would classify them as the greatest film they've seen, or
that's fair.
That kind of thing that some people would say about Return of the King or Two Towers, and have that be a legitimate, like, yeah, sure, I can see why you'd say that's the best movie of all time. Like, there's an argument to be made.
Yeah, I would have to.
And it feels like the Dunes, what he's doing with them, is the first time I've seen or felt that since the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, for me, that's why it's exciting, and I'm glad I'm in the middle of it and watched Dune 1 when I watched it to get to experience Dune 2 when it came out with everybody the first time, to now anticipate 3. It feels, again, similar to the Lord of the Rings, and in part the Marvel one, but it's not as many films, there's more space in between. So there's even more of a heightenedness to it because it's not twice a year for a decade.
Yeah. There is something to the suspense that is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I don't want it now. I mean, I think of, what was it, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Did you see that one?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I wasn't in tune. They did a really good job. I did not know we were going to be left with a big old cliffhanger going to a third movie. It's not even a third movie. It's the second part of the second movie. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. That's not even the way they laid that one out was, boom, done. You're like, we only got half a movie here. Like, it's amazing, but where's the other half of the movie?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that'll be the third, but it's only half of the movie. Like, where the first movie is the first movie, it stands alone. Where the second one now, it's half done. Like, we're waiting for that second, and that, as much as I don't like being in suspense and waiting, and it's still a couple years away, I think, actually, 2027. I'd have to look. It's a while still.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it so well. Usually, especially on the Marvel stuff, you kind of heard things going on and different things with the superhero things coming or not coming, and just all of a sudden, lights on, black screen. What just happened?
Mm-hmm.
As frustrated as I am, that's an amazing experience that they pulled off. To be able, the majority of people that went to theaters experienced the exact same thing that I experienced. They went and saw it, expecting the story of Into the Spider-Verse story told,
mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden the bottom drops out, and you realize, oh, no.
We got Soprano'd.
Sure, we'll call it that.
Not quite mid-sentence, but close.
Real close. Yeah. Or was it a mid? No, it wasn't. Well, I don't know if I'll watch Dune before or after now.
Well, let me know. Again, I would not recommend watching that one there for a React video.
I could still do a React video on a big screen, but
I mean, the first time I ever saw Everything Everywhere All at Once was on a movie or an airplane screen. So this little, 3.5-inch screen. I'm watching this massive scoped film. Not as massive as Dune per se, but
still
not designed to be watched this far away from your face on this screen. So when I watched it again with my wife before the Oscars, it was so much more enjoyable to watch it the second time because I wasn't trying to follow the story, and two, because I could enjoy the scope and the visuals so much more. Again, seeing it the way the directors intended, I think Christopher Nolan does a really good job of utilizing all that film can be to tell the story he wants through IMAX cameras and knowing the field of vision. And
there's some directors and artists just simply know how to maximize the equipment that they have and just give you an experience like no other. It's just, and it's fascinating because all the other people out there doing it, and there's just ones that just they just understand the feel, the look, the timing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I think people are concerned about, what does the future look like with the AI things and the different things coming out. And I mean, who knows where it could be in a decade or two, I don't know. But there's just something inside of you that you feel, because like that's one of those, I've seen it before in interviews, and I'm not going to remember who, but where they're talking to like a director or a writer, and they talk about doing something that, like everybody else said, do not do that. That makes no sense. That doesn't follow any line. Like, don't do it. And turning out to be like a extremely pivotal, iconic moment in a piece of art. And they're just like, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it this way. And they're like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And that turns out to be the thing.
No.
When nobody else could see it or feel it, they just knew they're like, this right here will be it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, so cool.
Yeah. I think Tarantino got a lot of that before and right after Pulp Fiction came out, because it's not a straight narrative. He jumps around back and forth and all that.
Yeah.
He Tarantinos it, as it were, which he's done in a few films.
Before it was a Tarantino?
Yeah. He did that in Pulp Fiction. He did it in Jackie Brown a little bit. He did it in Kill Bill. Does he do it in Inglourious Bastards? I don't remember. And I know Christopher Nolan did it in Memento. I know he got a lot of people that loved his script and a lot of people that said, this is never going to succeed. No one's going to watch this. They won't be able to follow it. Which, talk about underestimating your audience.
Well, I will even say, so, Pulp Fiction, just all-time classic. But then, like, the Kill Bill came out, and I was like, seemed like something entertaining. And I saw the first one, and I was like, like, it didn't, like, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, but then, like, you needed the second one.
It's one long movie.
Exactly. Like Spider-Man waiting for it. Like, the thing is with Kill Bill is, I remember seeing it and it finished and I was like, I knew there was a second one coming out, but it just, like, it felt like the first one was kind of done to me, and like, I was just like, okay. Not knowing, like, to me, the way he layered it together or did it, I didn't feel like it was like, okay, the second one will make it all make sense. Like, it just felt like, oh, there's going to be a second one coming out. Like, maybe I'll go see it. Like, kind of thing. And maybe that was just my experience, but my gosh, once I saw the second one, like the first one just came to life now so much more. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe I've heard in interviews he weighed releasing them as one long movie, but didn't feel like audiences would sit for that long, which understandable.
Yep.
But I think they were only released like 5 or 6 months apart, maybe 7 months.
Yeah, it wasn't that
for that
long.
reason, because he shot it all and then edited them into 2 films. But again, what an artistic vision to have that.
Yeah. Well, definitely splitting up was by far the right choice. Because you need that.
And he's such a student of film. That's one of the things I appreciate about him. He's loved movies. He has an almost encyclopedic knowledge of movies. And then he added something of his own to filmdom, which most can't do, won't do, won't have attempt to do.
I think that's the key right there, is it's not that they can't, it's that they won't and they're not willing to go out on that limb and do it, which is what we need those people to do.
Right.
We need those people to take that new creative, I mean, think The Matrix. Nobody had done that on a big screen, big film, big production, slow down, timing, crazy. Nobody had. They're like, we're going to do this. I can only imagine some people being like, no. Like, trust me. And then you put it on screen and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Just
bullet time.
And it changes the game. Look at now, since then, all the different movies and action scenes that have used a bullet time type scene in their movie after that. But that had to be, somebody had to take that vision and go, we're going to do this thing. And they're like, nobody's ever done that before. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
It's going to work.
I'm curious to see if we'll have more directors like Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino in the next 20 years that have the ability to do their own vision with the budgets that these films are supposed to have and supposed to bring in.
See, that's the trick, because
he came in and did Pulp Fiction. I mean, he had done, I think he wrote True Romance first, and then From Dusk Till Dawn, I think, and then this was his first directing film. So to give someone that chance on their first script without them being a proven director, unlikely to happen now.
Yeah, I don't see that.
And it was such a unique vision at the time.
Yeah, I don't think that we're ever going to see that again. I think we're going to see more of the people that are in their basement, or they're in their bedroom, or in some small office space, making their own art, bringing some new creative vision to life that is going to make its way through modern media to the point where people are going to be like, oh, we need to get them and their vision, put some money behind it to bring it to life.
Yeah.
So it'll be something that already exists in some form, not just in their head, to be able to get them that audition, basically, to be able to get the money to go put it out.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think that's more what we'll see.
I mean, because Pulp Fiction was such a big hit, it felt like after that was a hit and Jackie Brown was a hit, which, again, was not necessarily a given. It's my favorite Tarantino film. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
Jackie Brown?
Yeah. It's a wonderfully acted, set in like the late 70s California, kind of a heist con artist film. just so well acted. But I think after those two were hits, he had kind of established himself, and then sort of had a little bit of carte blanche to do what he wanted. One that surprised me early on was Christopher Nolan. I think he'd already done Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Yes, but he had not done Dark Knight Rises yet. But in between that, some studio, I don't know which one, must have said, clearly you know what you're doing. Here's X amount of dollars, or I don't know if it was an unlimited budget. Do you have any story you want to tell? And he and his brother had Inception to tell. Which, to spend that amount of money on an unknown IP, no graphic novel, no comic books, no book, no nothing, to come out of nothing, to create that film at that quality,
Yeah.
mind-boggling. Would it happen today? Possible, but I guess it doesn't need to. I mean, there's one of the best time travel movies I've seen is this small indie film called Primer. That was, I think the budget was like $25,000, and they shot it over like
Whoa.
6 weekends. It was just like two brothers and a friend.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That is fun.
They just, they had an idea and they brought it to life.
And I think that's something that I don't know how studios, record execs, if any of you see this, like invest in these alternatives in the indies and there's so many great stories out there that I don't know how they don't make it and how they're
Right.
take the chance. Like, I really think, like, you look at all the it seems like all studios are kind of just rewashing things, like all of them, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, but the budgets are so astronomical that they need to make money back. It feels like each studio should have an independent wing, and you cannot spend more than $20 million on a movie total. Therefore, it doesn't need to bring in $170 million to make your money back. You can take a little bit more risk on this side of the business.
Yeah.
And then have your tentpole films that bring in the $400 million, the $800 million, the $1.3 billion to help those that happen to not make it.
Well, and if these indie ones that are coming in with a $20 million budget come in with okay, here's my vision of telling a film arc, and here's what it would look like if I did 3 films. I'm just going to put out the one. Now, if it is a success for them and they have a 3-part trilogy movie that starts out as a smaller one, and all of a sudden now they can put a bigger budget behind the next 2 and make them bigger ticket items without just rewashing it, because it's just a continuation of a story, not like a remake of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Like, there's just so many opportunities there. Like, yeah, have I enjoyed some of the remake things and they had their own flair and stuff to them? Sure. But I'd love to have more original.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one of the reasons that we talked about it in a previous session here of the If. Like, it was just a fun, different take of a movie. It's not that necessarily things in it were different than, there's only so many different ways to tell a story. But it wasn't the same story told from old. It wasn't a rewash of it. Like, it was just a good, fun, entertaining story. They said entertaining, good message. I watched it coming out of there looking internally at things, that how I act, how I feel. But it's an original. Mm-hmm. Am I going to go see the next Toy Story coming out and feel those same things? Probably not.
Maybe. They haven't made a bad one yet.
Yeah,
which is surprising, because Cars 2 and 3 are not great.
But like the send-off, like, I enjoyed it. it was a good film, but it doesn't stick with me like the original Toy Story and Andy and Chase and the moving van down the like that whole thing, and like banding together and like hating each other to then becoming brothers with Buzz and Woody, and like that versus, hey, you know, it's kind of time for us all to head off and do our own thing, and like,
yeah. I'm interested to see how my kids will view their experience of children's films and animated films, because it was so different than we experienced. Because we only had what was out on VHS, and then when it would come in theater, we go and see it because it was the new movie. And now
and you only had like 4 VHSs.
They have every movie that's come out since the 30s to watch anytime they want. So I don't really necessarily have a conceptualization of, oh, this came out when I was.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they just can watch any of them.
Well, I think about like for us, like where they could watch any of them, so they could really watch a different thing every single day, like all the time. Like I remember growing up, and I think we had like 4 different VHSs of movies to watch. So I watched the same movies a lot of times at that, like Rookie of the Year and Angels in the Outfield. I've seen those 2 movies a lot. All Dogs Go to Heaven, a lot. And then I don't know if I was still at home or it was when I moved out in the Air Force. Happy Gilmore and Tommy Boy. Like, I think those are 5 movies that I could not tell you, and Billy Madison too, how many times I have seen those movies. Because I didn't have anything else, so I would go back to. But it wasn't like, that's the thing about them too. It wasn't like I had to force myself to go back to them. Like I enjoyed going back to them. They were good films. They told a good story. They're entertaining. I wondered if I should break my arm so I'd be a better pitcher. My parents told me it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Watched The Kid in King Arthur's Court with my daughter a couple months back. I'd never seen it.
I have not either.
It was okay. Apparently there was a non-officially licensed sequel called A Kid in Aladdin's something. Castle? Something like that. It was the same guy from the first movie.
Okay.
Same main character, but it was not officially licensed. So very knockoff.
Who knows? It could be a hit. A diamond in the rough.
A diamond in the rough. Could be. But we'll see. I mean, movies are such a point in time.
They are.
That, you know, when you release it, it's done. Unless you go back and do a director's cut or extended edition or whatever. I've appreciated the quality of television lately because they have the chance to raise the narrative quality over time and adjust to what works and what doesn't.
Listen to the audience.
Yes. You know, one of my favorite examples is Breaking Bad. It ends up being. Have you seen it?
I have not.
It ends up being.
We talked about this. How do you not remember? I thought
it ends up being the story of Walt and Jesse.
Yeah, I know the premise of it for sure.
Jesse was supposed to be in like the first 3 episodes, and then get killed off because they wanted it to be the narrative of Walt. But the guy playing Jesse was so good that they're like, yeah, we can't. We gotta pivot.
Can't do that.
And it makes the show. The show would not be the show without that, because it was now these 2 parallel arcs but in different directions, of one who starts good and goes bad, breaks bad, and one who's bad and ends up kind of redeeming himself. So as these opposing narratives, and they cross each other about two-thirds of the way through the show, and then it's, who do we root for, and it was so cool to see them be able to be, Vince Gilligan, to be like, you know what? That works better, I think. And it's because we casted the right person for it.
Yep.
Versus something like How I Met Your Mother, which have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
So they filmed the sit-down interviews with the kids during season 1 of the dad, Bob Saget, for some reason.
Because Bob Saget.
Telling
he's the dad
kids
of all time.
The story over voiceover, and filmed all the reactions, so through the run of the series they could cut back to it and still have the kids be the same age as the show progressed.
Yep.
So the creators had the ending they had in mind and filmed that.
Yep.
And then the show developed differently, but they're like, no, we filmed this ending. We have to. And it felt like it did a disservice to the story that they created and where it eventually went and made sense to go. For them to be like, you know what, it's this. We know we're taking you here. We know everybody wants to see this, but psych! It's this. And I mega loathe it. It was...
So you need to... I was going to plug something, but now we're going to... Because I did not know all this. We need to elaborate a little bit here.
Go on. About which part?
About the ending of How I Met Your Mother, and...
You've seen it?
I've seen the whole thing.
Okay. Well, for me, I mean, again, the whole show is how he met their mother.
Yes.
And we build to that for 8 seasons. There's the on again, off again with Robin, but that was never the thing. And then we the last 2.5, 3 seasons is the build-up of Barney and Robin and building to that, and the entire last season is the weekend of their wedding.
Yeah.
And all building up to that, which is where he meets their mother. And we finally get to meet her in those, she's probably in 7 episodes of the last season or whatever.
Yep.
And it's amazing. She was perfectly cast. She was super sweet. Everything you'd want Ted to be with. And we barely get to see that, and they're like, psych, she died. And I go, I'm with Robin. And it felt very much like pulling the rug out from under when they didn't need to. Could it have been a heart-wrenching emotional end where they meet, have this whirlwind romance, they get married, they have these beautiful kids, and then she happens to die from cancer or something? Sure. But why then pivot back to, that relationship that I told you about that never worked out, and they married my best friend? Yeah, they got divorced, and now I'm back with her. And that was the ending they filmed. And I don't know if they even had in mind that Barney would end up with Robin at the end of the show. Doesn't feel like it made sense. Maybe it did. But it felt very much like, we filmed the ending of the kids reacting to Aunt Robin. We need to use that ending. How do we get back to that ending? Instead of, we have that footage. It doesn't really make sense for where we've taken the show, how it's grown and developed, where these characters have gone to in the last 7 years, 8 years. Let's do the right ending.
Okay.
So, there is that fan-edited version of the last scene of the last episode that is...
Where they don't have that forced in part.
It's literally because they first meet on the platform waiting for the bus or the train.
Yep.
And she's got his umbrella and vice versa. And then they talk for a little bit and they smile at each other, and then it pans back out and it's Bob Saget going, and that, kids, is How I Met Your Mother. And it was just perfect because that's literally the show. And instead, they come back and say, and your mom died, so now I'm banging Aunt Robin again. And the kids are like, yeah, we love Aunt Robin. Who cares? Which, again, for the kids in the show, their mom's now been passed away for 9 years at minimum or something. So they've had the character time to be okay with mom's passed away. We lived with Dad for a long time. We want them to be happy. We, as the fans, just met her. And then you're like, let's shoot her. Let's kill her. No? All right, she'll just get some sickness. We won't talk about it and she'll die. Cool. Now we can do the thing we planned 8 years ago. Anyway, I don't have any strong feelings about it.
I can tell. I'm going to have to go back and watch the whole thing now.
Yeah.
Because it's been so long since I watched it that I can honestly say, when you said that, I'm like, what do you mean about the ending? And to tell you how much I was focused in on the, like, you picked up along the way that, like, he's explaining meeting the mother because mom's gonna be dead. Like, okay, that's where we're going with this. Like, if they pull some 180, it'd be weird. Like, it's gonna be that she's dead. Okay. I quite honestly tell you, like, and I remember lots of things I could quote from that movie and remember from that movie. And Robin and Barney getting together and all that. I do not remember the, oh yeah, I'm with Aunt Robin now thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you said, I'm like, that kind of sounds familiar. It's almost like I blanked it from my mind because it didn't even fit. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, it's almost like something where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really fit. So I'm just gonna, like, not remember that part. Mm-hmm. I ask Katie, I'm really good at, like, forgetting things that are, like, negative and I don't want in my life. And she's like, you remember this happened? Nope, not at all. She's like, oh, it definitely happened. I'm like,
okay.
I don't think it did. Right. She's like, oh, it definitely did. I'm like,
okay.
Well, if you say so. Don't remember.
Yeah.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. And it's an interesting thing if they felt it was the right direction or that was just what they filmed, so they just absolutely stuck with it. But that's...
It definitely feels like it. But... And there's an interview with the cast before, like, I think the last 2 episodes premiered or something, where they asked them all, like, are you happy with how the show ended up, or are you excited about where your characters ended? And you can see them all are like, yeah, mm-hmm. And it's the similar thing with the actors from Game of Thrones, like on the premiere carpet for the last episode. Like, they asked Emilia,
I never watched that.
They
but
asked
I heard
Emilia Clarke, like, do you think this was a satisfying ending for your character? And she laughed in their face. And then she's like, it was such a journey to play this character. I was honored to be a part of this and to bring Daenerys to life.
Yeah. I've never watched any of the Game of Thrones, never got into it. I mean, Fantasy World and stuff, I'm sure I would enjoy it, but I definitely remember hearing that it was like, and obviously I didn't watch it, so I didn't know why, but I heard fans and people that followed the whole thing were pissed. Mm-hmm. So, I can imagine if you know that, feel that as the actor, and feel the same thing, that'd be really hard to go out and do interviews and be on the red carpet and be like,
I am thrilled.
You're still signing my check.
I am thrilled to be here. This
Gosh,
is great.
One, to pour that much seasons and seasons and seasons.
Another one of 8 seasons worth, yeah.
And you think, I would have to think, like, you don't have the full script, or you just don't know exactly how they're going to end it, or they change, like, because if you knew it was going to end that way from the beginning to the end.
Well, that's the interesting part about Game of Thrones, is it's based off of George R.R. Martin's books.
Yeah.
But the show went faster than he could write his books. So the show follows his books until about season 5-ish.
Ah.
And then after that, it was the HBO writers, the showrunners, who were kind of making it up. So a lot of people are, 1, still waiting for that next book from George, and 2, assuming that you can basically say from season 5 on, the stories completely diverge. We don't know that yet because we haven't gotten George's book. He says he's working on them.
it's almost more imperative that he writes just a banger of a just
Right. But how weird will that be? Like, we've already seen the journey of these characters for 5 seasons that matches your book. And now 3 more that don't. But this is the true story.
Well,
Because you're the one that created this world, and
yeah.
it's interesting. I'm surprised he hasn't come out with it yet. Because
I'm sure he's
that
putting in the
show
work to
ended
make sure.
in 2018.
But I'm sure he's putting in the work to make sure it is.
It ended in 2018, which means season 5 would have been 2014, 15. So it's been almost a decade since they had source material to write from.
But you think, I mean, if you created what you created, there's such a fandom around it, then it diverts so badly. You have to make sure that the next thing that you deliver for the fandom
Brings it-
lands.
Yeah.
Like, it has to, like, there's few times I would say where, like, an artist or a writer or a creator has to nail it. Knowing what you just laid out to me, like, he has to nail it. It has to deliver on that. Because otherwise, like, the whole legacy of it all gets completely tarnished at that point.
Right.
Like, everything.
Which is a lot to put on him for the thing that he created.
No, absolutely so. Like, being put in the position he is not fair, and that sucks. But I also feel, knowing as much as I do know about Game of Thrones and what he's created, that he's passionate enough and caring enough that he wants it to be finished out correctly and done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Whether this would be the last book or not, I would kind of think that he would, I would think, given what you've just laid out to me, and if I'm quick thinking on it, I would be trying to, but maybe that's also why he has taken as long as he has. Maybe it isn't the last book. Maybe there's going to be a couple books and he's just working on having it so that when he drops it, he's ready with the next and the next, so there's not any...
One conspiracy theory that is totally unconfirmed is that
I like this.
either this was the ending he had in mind, or he worked with the writers to kind of give him tips of what he was thinking so they could make it. But he's seen how poorly it was received, and so he's like, crap. Now I gotta come up with something else. I don't think so, because of how quality the narrative arcs and development of the characters was early on. But
unless it's entirely possible too, for if he, along the process, just lost some of the vision, the direction, the depth,
maybe. And it's really, for me, it's mostly
baseball
just,
players get the yips. I'm sure.
It's mostly just the last 2.5 episodes that kind of really take characters from where they had been centered for themselves to, like, what are they doing? Like, what? How does everything you've done up until this point, and you do that? What do you do? Okay. Wow. Okay. Anyway, moving on from that.
Yeah. What a roller coaster of a ride.
So there's that.
So film.
All this to say, not a requirement,
But it helps.
but it helps.
So if you're going to put something out there, at least try to be entertaining.
Mhm.
And hopefully we've been.
Hopefully, we've been Hamlet without Hamlet.
We'll see you next time.
Give it, blow it up.
Aww.